My stepsister told everyone I was greedy and selfish, then showed up at my door the day after I inherited $35 million. Let me back up. I grew up as the only child of a single mother who worked 3 jobs to keep us housed and fed. When I was 13, she married Roger, a wealthy real estate developer with a daughter my age named Valentina. Valentina had grown up in a mansion with a trust fund and designer everything. I had grown up sharing a studio apartment and wearing thrift store clothes. From day one, Valentina made sure I knew I didn't belong. She'd leave my belongings in the trash, tell Roger I was stealing from them, and spread rumors at school that my mom had seduced her dad for money. Roger believed every word. My mom was too grateful for the financial security to rock the boat. Just ignore her, she'd whisper. We need this. For 5 years, I endured it. Valentina got a new BMW for her 16th birthday. I got a lecture about being entitled when I asked to borrow the family car. She went to Paris for spring break. I worked at the mall to save for community college. When I graduated high school, Roger informed me I needed to start paying rent or move out. Valentina was going to Yale, fully funded. I took out loans and moved into a dorm room the size of a closet. My mom died suddenly of an aneurysm when I was 22. At the funeral, Valentina complained that my crying was making everything about me. Roger gave me 2 weeks to clear out my childhood belongings from their house. I was living on $9 an hour in student debt. I rented a storage unit I could barely afford. Then last year, I got a letter from a law firm. My biological father, whom I'd never met, had died. He'd been a tech entrepreneur who sold his company in the early days of the internet. He'd left everything to me, $35 million. The lawyer explained that my father had kept track of me from a distance and wanted to make sure I was taken care of. I didn't tell anyone at first, but Valentina found out somehow. Within 24 hours, she'd posted on Facebook about how I'd inherited blood money and didn't deserve it, how I'd always been greedy and selfish, taking advantage of her family's generosity. The post went viral among her 3,000 friends. Then yesterday, she showed up at my apartment crying, mascara running, designer bag clutched in her hands. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I was hurt you didn't tell me. We're sisters. I stared at her, remembering everything. What do you want, Valentina? Roger's business had failed. They were losing the house. She had massive credit card debt. She needed $800,000. This would barely make a dent for you, but it would save my whole life. I thought about my mother working herself to death, about all the times Valentina had watched me struggle and laughed. I looked at her crying face and felt nothing. When I needed a place to grieve my mother, you gave me 2 weeks. When I needed help with tuition, you went to Europe. When I needed family, you called me a charity case. Her tears stopped. Her face hardened. So you're really going to let us lose everything? Your choices created this situation, just like you always said. I need to stop expecting handouts. She stood up, her voice turning vicious. You'll regret this. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I opened the door. They already think I'm greedy and selfish, remember? You made sure of that yesterday. She left, slamming the door. I sat down on my secondhand couch, thinking about everything. That's when I noticed the document she'd left behind on my coffee table. I picked it up and my blood went cold. It was a legal claim stating that my mother had promised Valentina half of any inheritance I ever received. The signature looked exactly like my mother's handwriting. I stared at the paper for 3 full minutes. The letterhead belonged to Wilson & Associates, a law firm I'd never heard of. The document was dated 2 months before my mom died. According to this, she'd gone to a lawyer and formally promised that if I ever inherited anything from my biological father, half would go to Valentina, as thanks for Roger's generosity over the years. My hands started shaking, not from fear, from rage. I picked up my phone and called the lawyer who'd handled my biological father's estate. Patricia Chen answered on the second ring. I need you to look at something, I said. Can I come to your office right now? 30 minutes later, I was sitting across from Patricia, watching her examine the document through reading glasses. She was in her 60s, with silver hair and the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing. She'd been kind to me during the inheritance process, patient with my questions about taxes and investments. This is interesting, she said finally. She set the paper down and folded her hands. Do you have any of your mother's other signatures? Anything she signed before she died? I pulled out my phone and showed her photos I'd taken of my mom's birthday cards, the lease agreement from our old apartment, her signature on my college loan documents. Patricia studied each one carefully. The signature on this promise document is very good, she said, but it's not quite right. See here? She pointed to the way the L in my mother's last name curved. Your mother's authentic signatures have a slight uptick at the end. This one doesn't. It's a small detail, but telling. So it's forged? Almost certainly. But there's something else. She turned to her computer and typed rapidly. Wilson & Associates. Let me check the Bar Association records. She scrolled for a moment, then made a small sound of satisfaction. There is no law firm by that name registered in this state, or any neighboring state. My stomach dropped. So the whole thing is fake? The letterhead, the firm, probably the notary stamp too. Someone went to considerable effort to make this look legitimate. Patricia leaned back in her chair. But they made mistakes. Small ones, but mistakes nonetheless. If this had gone before a judge, it would have fallen apart under basic scrutiny. I thought about Valentina's desperation, her red eyes, the way she'd left this document behind like she'd forgotten it, like an accident. She wanted me to find it, I said slowly. She wanted me to see it and panic, maybe give her the money to make it go away before it became a legal issue. That would be my assessment, Patricia agreed. This is intimidation, not litigation. Real lawyers don't leave evidence lying around. She made a note on her legal pad. Would you like me to report this to the authorities? Forgery is a serious crime. So is attempted fraud of this magnitude. I stared at the fake document. Part of me wanted Valentina arrested, but a larger part of me wanted something else entirely. Not yet, I said. Can you keep this document somewhere safe, as evidence? Of course. I'll make copies and store the original in our vault. Patricia studied my face. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Valentina has no idea I've already consulted you. She thinks I'm some scared kid who'll fold under pressure. I stood up and collected my things. I want to see how far she's willing to go with this. Patricia smiled slightly. Document everything. Save all texts, emails, voice messages. If she escalates, we'll have a complete record. I left her office and drove home slowly, thinking. My phone buzzed twice. Both texts from Valentina. First text, did you find my paperwork? I left it by accident. Don't freak out, we can talk about this. Second text, actually forget I said that. My lawyer will be in touch. You can't just take what's mine. I didn't respond. Instead, I screenshot both messages and emailed them to Patricia. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my mother's last year, how tired she'd been, how she'd apologized constantly for marrying Roger, for bringing me into that house. I thought I was giving you a better life, she'd said once near the end. Instead, I gave you Valentina. I told her it was fine, that I'd survived, but I'd been lying. It wasn't fine. And now Valentina was trying to steal the one thing my actual father had left me. Around 2 a.m., my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Roger standing there in rumpled clothes, looking older than I remembered. I opened the door but kept the chain on. What do you want? His face was haggard. Can we talk, please? It's 2 a.m. I know. I've been driving around for hours trying to figure out what to say. He ran a hand through his thinning hair. Valentina told me what happened. About the money you inherited. About the document your mother signed. The document my mother supposedly signed. I corrected. His eyes shifted away. Right. Supposedly. Did you know about it? Before Valentina showed it to me? No, he said quickly. Too quickly. I mean, your mother mentioned once that she felt guilty about how things went with you. That if you ever got something from your real father, she wanted to make sure Valentina was taken care of too. But I didn't know she'd made it legal. I studied his face through the crack in the door. He was lying. Not very well, but lying nonetheless. Roger, that document is fake. The law firm doesn't exist. The signature doesn't match. Did Valentina think I was too stupid to check? His expression crumbled. For a moment, he looked like he might cry. I didn't know she was going to do that. She told me there was a real document, that your mother had signed something. I never saw it. He trailed off. You just wanted to believe her because you're broke and desperate. He flinched. My business failed. I made bad investments. I thought I was being smart, but I wasn't. Everything's gone. The house, the cars, everything. Valentina maxed out her credit cards trying to keep up appearances. We're drowning. And you thought you'd drown me too. No, He looked down at his expensive shoes, probably the last nice thing he owned. I thought maybe, since you got so much, you could spare a little, for old times' sake. Old times, I repeated. Like when you kicked me out at 18? Or when you charged me rent but let Valentina live free? Or when you gave me 2 weeks to grieve my mother? I know I wasn't a good stepfather. I know that. But I'm asking now, as someone who helped raise you. You didn't raise me. You tolerated me. Barely. I started to close the door. Go home, Roger. Wait. He shoved his hand against the door. Valentina was supposed to apologize, not threaten you. That's not what I wanted. If I can convince her to drop this whole thing with the fake document, would you consider helping us? Just a little? How much is a little? 50,000. Just enough to keep us afloat until I can get another job. I almost laughed. You came here at 2 a.m. to negotiate a bribe? It's not a bribe. It's family helping family. We're not family. You made that clear years ago. I pulled the door closed. This time he let it shut. Through the peephole, I watched him stand there for a full minute before walking away, shoulders slumped. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt, just tired. The next morning, I got an email from a new lawyer. Not Wilson and Associates, but someone named Bradley Preston from Preston Legal Group. The email was formal and threatening. It claimed Valentina had a legitimate claim to half my inheritance based on a verbal agreement my mother had made with her before she died. It demanded I contact their office within 48 hours to arrange a settlement or face legal action. I forwarded it to Patricia with a note. They're adapting. She called me within an hour. This firm is real, but Preston is a known ambulance chaser. Takes on cases that are ethically questionable if the payday is big enough. The fact that he's now claiming a verbal agreement instead of that fake document suggests Valentina knows the forgery won't hold up. What do I do? Nothing. Let them sue if they want. They have no case. Verbal agreements about inheritances are nearly impossible to prove and aren't enforceable in most circumstances anyway. They're fishing. She paused. But I am concerned about the harassment angle. They're clearly trying to wear you down. I can handle it. I know you can. But document everything anyway, just in case. That afternoon, Valentina's story appeared in the local newspaper. Heiress abandons family in time of need, the headline read. The article painted me as cruel and heartless. It mentioned my $35 million inheritance and Roger's financial struggles. It quoted Valentina extensively about how I'd grown up in their home, benefited from their generosity, and was now refusing to help in their darkest hour. The article carefully avoided mentioning any fake documents or legal claims. It was pure PR, designed to make me look like a villain, and it worked. My phone exploded with messages from people I barely knew, calling me selfish and ungrateful. Someone left a bag of garbage on my doorstep with a note. This is what you are. My landlord called, concerned about the negative attention. I'm not saying you have to move, he said carefully. But some of the other tenants are complaining about reporters hanging around. I considered moving, disappearing the way I'd learned to disappear when I lived with Roger and Valentina. But something in me refused. I'd done nothing wrong. I'd inherited money from a father who actually cared about me. Why should I hide? Instead, I called Patricia. I want to make a public statement. Are you sure? Sometimes silence is stronger. I'm sure. We drafted something together. Short and factual. No accusations. No drama, just the truth. I inherited money from my biological father. I grew up poor, not privileged. My stepsister's claims are false. I owe her nothing. I posted it on Facebook. Within an hour, people from my past started commenting. Former classmates who remembered me working at the mall while Valentina bought designer clothes, teachers who'd known about my scholarship applications and student loans, even neighbors from the old apartment building who'd watched my mom leave for work at 5 a.m. every day. The narrative started to shift, slowly at first, then faster. Someone found Valentina's old Instagram posts, the ones showing her vacations and shopping sprees while she lived rent-free in Roger's mansion. Someone else dug up articles about Roger's company, noting that his business failure came after years of risky investments and lavish spending. A former Yale classmate of Valentina's wrote a long post about her entitlement and cruelty. She once told me poor people deserve to be poor because they were too lazy to be rich, the post said. And she meant it. By evening, the public opinion had turned. The same people who'd called me selfish were now defending me. The newspaper posted a follow-up article, this time interviewing my former professors and employers. She worked harder than anyone I knew, my old manager said. She deserved every good thing that came her way. My phone buzzed. Patricia, have you seen Valentina's Facebook? I checked. She'd deleted her original post calling me greedy and selfish. In its place was a new post, full of victim language. I'm being attacked for speaking my truth, it said. My stepsister has money and power and she's using it to destroy me. The comments were brutal. People calling her out for changing her story, for playing victim, for trying to exploit family tragedy for cash. Roger called me 3 times that night. I didn't answer. Instead, I listened to his voicemails. First message, this has gotten out of hand. Valentina's upset. I'm upset. Can we please just talk like adults? Second message, look, forget the money, forget everything. We just want this to stop. The media attention is killing us. Third message, fine, you win. We'll leave you alone. Just please stop talking to the press. I hadn't talked to the press. I'd made one statement and let the truth do its work. But Roger didn't understand that. He thought I was orchestrating some revenge campaign. He couldn't comprehend that people simply remembered who Valentina really was. I slept well that night for the first time in weeks, but it wasn't over. It never is with people like Valentina. When public sympathy fails, they try different tactics. 2 weeks later, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered cautiously. A woman's voice, older, cold. Is this the girl who inherited the money from her father? Who is this? My name is Diane. I'm Valentina's mother. Her real mother, not the stepmother who died. I went still. I'd never met Diane. She'd left Roger when Valentina was a toddler, disappeared to Europe with a new husband. As far as I knew, she'd never been involved in Valentina's life. What do you want? I want to understand why you're punishing my daughter for your childhood trauma. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm just not giving her money that isn't hers. Money she was promised by a dead woman who never made that promise. Diane laughed. It was a harsh sound. You're clever. I'll give you that. Cleverer than I expected, but you're making a mistake. Valentina has been very sheltered, very protected. She doesn't know how to fight dirty, but I do. Is that a threat? It's a prediction. You think this is over because you won some public opinion battle? That's nothing. Public opinion is fickle. What matters is what happens in court, in back rooms, in the places where real power operates. And I have connections you can't imagine. My hand tightened on the phone. Then have Valentina sue me. Let's settle this legally. Oh, we will, but not the way you expect. See, I've been looking into your father, the man who left you all that money. Very interesting history. My blood went cold. What are you talking about? Let's just say his business success wasn't entirely legitimate. There are people who lost money because of him, investors who were cheated, and they'd be very interested to know where their money ended up. That's insane. If there was anything illegal, it would have come out when he died. Would it? Rich men bury their crimes all the time, but I'm very good at digging them up. She paused. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give Valentina the $800,000 she needs. In return, I'll forget everything I've learned about your father. Otherwise, I'll make sure his name, and yours, gets dragged through every court and newspaper in the country. Even if nothing sticks legally, the reputation damage will be permanent. I couldn't breathe. You're trying to extort me. I'm offering you a business transaction. Take it or leave it. She hung up. I sat in my apartment shaking. Then I called Patricia. She's lying, Patricia said firmly after I explained. Your father's estate was thoroughly vetted during probate. If there were hidden lawsuits or criminal issues, they would have surfaced. This is classic intimidation. But what if she's not lying? What if there's something? Then we deal with it. But we don't pay blackmail based on empty threats. She paused. I'm going to make some calls. I know some investigators who can look into Diane's background. If she has connections, we need to know what they are. 2 days later, Patricia called me back. Interesting news. Diane isn't nearly as connected as she claims. She married money 3 times, divorced rich 3 times. But her current situation is precarious. Her last ex-husband has her tied up in court over asset division. She's facing serious debt. So she's trying to use me as a payday. Exactly. She thinks if she can scare you into paying Valentina, she'll get a cut. Classic con. Patricia's voice hardened. And I found something else. Diane has done this before. She threatened 2 of her ex-husbands with false accusations to increase her divorce settlements. One of them has court records documenting her extortion attempts. What happened to him? He fought back and won. She got nothing. Patricia paused. The question is, do you want to fight or settle? I thought about my mother, about how she'd always told me to avoid confrontation, to keep my head down. It had kept us safe, but it had also kept us small. Small apartment, small dreams, small life. I'd inherited my father's money, but I'd also inherited something else. The knowledge that I didn't have to live small anymore. I want to fight. Good. Patricia said, because I think we can end this permanently. Over the next week, Patricia worked fast. She filed harassment charges against both Diane and Valentina, documenting every threatening message, every fake legal claim, every attempt at extortion. She sent cease and desist letters to Bradley Preston, warning him that continuing to pursue a baseless claim would result in sanctions. She also did something unexpected. She contacted 3 of Roger's former business partners, the ones who'd lost money in his failed ventures. With my permission, she offered them information about Roger's current financial situation, not to hurt him, but to protect me. If Roger was planning more legal action, his creditors deserved to know he was hiding assets. Within 48 hours, Roger's house was in foreclosure, not because of me, but because his creditors had finally caught up with him. The mansion Valentina had grown up in, the symbol of everything she thought made her better than me, was being seized. Valentina called me, sobbing. "You did this. You destroyed us." "I didn't destroy anything. Your father's bad business decisions destroyed you. His creditors, not me. We're going to lose everything. The house, the cars, everything. Welcome to my childhood," I said, and hung up. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt tired and sad. Not for Valentina or Roger, but for my mother. She'd spent her last years watching me suffer in that house, knowing she'd traded my happiness for financial security. And now that security was revealed to be hollow. A week later, Roger showed up at my apartment again, this time at a reasonable hour. He looked terrible. Unshaven, in old clothes, driving a beat-up Honda instead of his Mercedes. "I came to apologize," he said. "Not to ask for money, just to apologize." I let him stand in the hallway. Didn't invite him in. "I failed you," he continued. "I knew Valentina was cruel to you and I let it happen. I knew you were struggling and I didn't help. I told myself you'd be fine, that you were tough, but really I just didn't want to deal with it. Didn't want to admit my daughter was a bully or that I was enabling her." "Okay," I said. "That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Roger? That I forgive you? I don't. You had years to be better and you chose not to." He nodded slowly. "Fair enough. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. Everything I did wrong. Everything I should have done differently." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Your mother would be proud of you, the way you handled all this. She always said you were stronger than all of us." After he left, I cried for the first time since this whole thing started. Not because I felt bad for Roger or Valentina, but because my mom wasn't here to see me finally stand up for myself. She'd spent her whole life teaching me to be small and quiet and grateful. But in her last days, she'd given me that bank account, that key. Maybe she'd known all along that I'd need to learn to fight. The lawsuit never materialized. Bradley Preston withdrew from representing Valentina after Patricia threatened to report him to the Bar Association. Diane disappeared back to Europe, her threats revealed as empty bluster. Valentina moved into a small apartment in a different city, got a job, and stopped posting on social media entirely. 6 months later, I was sorting through mail when I found a letter with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 3 words in handwriting I recognized. "You were right." It was from Valentina. No apology, no explanation, just those 3 words. I almost threw it away, but something made me keep it. Maybe because it was the closest thing to accountability I'd ever get from her. Or maybe because I understood, despite everything, that she was a product of the same system that had tried to break me. Roger's money, his values, his belief that wealth equaled worth. I'd escaped because I had no choice. Valentina never had to escape, so she'd never learned she was trapped. I used some of the inheritance to start a foundation. It provides grants to young women trying to escape abusive or controlling family situations. Housing assistance, education costs, legal fees, all the things I'd needed when I was 18 and alone. I named it after my mother. Last month, the foundation helped 47 women leave situations like mine. Some were escaping arranged marriages. Others were running from parents who treated them like property. Each one got real help, not just thoughts and prayers. Money for first month's rent, job placement assistance, therapy referrals. One girl reminded me of myself at 18. Same scared eyes, same determination. She'd left home with nothing but a backpack and a plan. "Thank you," she said when I handed her the check. "This changes everything." I thought about Valentina showing up at my door, crying about being sisters. About Roger claiming we were family. About all the people who'd judged me for refusing to give money to people who'd never helped me. "You earned this," I told the girl. "Not because you suffered, but because you survived. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for taking up space in the world." She nodded, understanding. That's the thing they don't tell you about inherited money. It doesn't just change your bank account. It changes your relationships, your identity, your understanding of who you are. People who ignored you suddenly want to be close. People who helped you feel entitled to a return, and you're left sorting out who actually cares about you versus who cares about what you have. I still live in a modest apartment. I still work. The inheritance is invested, generating returns that fund the foundation and my life. I don't buy designer bags or expensive cars. Those things meant something to Valentina because they were symbols of Roger's approval, of being worthy. But I never needed his approval. I had my mother's love, even if she couldn't protect me from Valentina, and I have my father's legacy. Not just his money, but his belief that I deserved better. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd given Valentina the money. If I'd believed her tears and handed over $800,000 to make her go away. She'd have spent it in 6 months. Come back for more. Used it to maintain a lifestyle built on nothing real. And I'd have learned that being kind means being weak, that setting boundaries means being cruel. Instead, I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's destruction. Valentina losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to her, though she'll probably never see it that way. She had to get a real job, manage a real budget, live without her father's money propping up her delusions. That's growth, even if it came through pain. As for Roger, I heard he's managing a storage facility now. Diane tried to sue him for unpaid alimony from decades ago and lost. Last I checked, Valentina was working as a receptionist and dating someone who drives a Toyota. Her Instagram is private now. No more photos of champagne and private jets. My life is quieter than I expected. The media attention faded. The lawyers moved on to other cases. I'm just another person with money, invisible in the way wealthy people often are when they don't flaunt it. And that suits me fine. The foundation keeps growing. We're expanding to 3 more states next year. Each woman we help is a small victory against the systems that tried to break me, that break so many others. I can't save everyone, but I can save some, and that matters. Last week, I got a friend request on Facebook from someone I didn't recognize. The profile photo showed a woman about my age with short hair and a genuine smile. The name was unfamiliar. I almost declined until I read the message. Hi, you don't know me, but your foundation helped my younger sister leave our parents' house 6 months ago. She's safe now, in college, building a real life. I wanted to thank you. People like you saved her. Saved both of us, really, because I didn't know how to help her, and I was drowning in guilt. Your foundation gave her options I couldn't provide. Gave her hope. Thank you. I accepted the request and wrote back. Your sister saved herself. We just gave her tools. But the truth is more complicated than that. Yes, she saved herself, but having resources, having options, having people who believe you deserve better, that makes self-rescue possible. My father's money didn't solve all my problems, but it gave me the space and safety to solve them myself. It gave me power in a world that had spent years telling me I deserved none. Valentina thought the inheritance was about getting rich. Roger thought it was about accumulating wealth, but it was never about the money itself. It was about having enough security to stop surviving and start living, about having enough power to say no without fearing the consequences, about being able to help others without depleting yourself. 3 months ago, I decided to do something that surprised even me. I hired a private investigator to find information about my biological father. Not his business records or his finances, but his life, who he was, why he never contacted me, what made him build a company and sell it for millions but never reach out to his daughter. The investigator came back with a file 3 inches thick. My father, his name was Richard, had been 19 when my mother got pregnant. He'd wanted to be involved. But my mother had pushed him away, afraid he'd try to take me from her. She'd been young and scared and convinced she couldn't trust anyone. By the time she realized her mistake, Richard had moved across the country. He'd hired investigators over the years to track me, to make sure I was okay. Every time my mom moved us, he knew. Every school I attended, every job I worked. He'd never interfered because my mother had made him promise. When he was dying, he'd changed his will to leave everything to me. His lawyer had a letter for me, one I'd never been given because I hadn't asked for it. The letter was short, 3 paragraphs. He'd written that he was sorry, that he'd wanted to be my father but respected my mother's wishes, that he'd watched me grow into someone strong and resilient despite everything, that the money was his way of making up for lost time, even though he knew money couldn't replace presence. The last line broke me. You don't owe me gratitude or grief. This is just what fathers do. They take care of their children, even from a distance. I cried reading it, because my whole life I'd believed no one was looking out for me, that I was alone in the world after my mother died. But Richard had been there, invisible, making sure I'd be okay if anything happened to him. He'd built a safety net I didn't know existed. I drove to his grave for the first time. He was buried in a small cemetery in Washington state. The headstone was simple. Richard Chen, builder of things. No dates, no epitaph, just those 4 words. I sat on the grass and told him everything. About Valentina, about Roger, about the foundation, about learning to fight. I talked for an hour, crying and laughing and feeling stupid because I was talking to stone, but I needed to say it. Needed him to know, wherever he was, that his money had done more than keep me comfortable. It had freed me. Thank you, I said finally, not just for the inheritance, but for giving a damn. Even from far away, the wind picked up, rustling leaves. I'd like to think it was him responding, but probably it was just wind. I started visiting once a month, bringing flowers, updating him on the foundation, telling him about the women we'd helped. I'd never known him in life, but I was building a relationship with him in death. It sounds strange, but it helped. For years, I'd felt abandoned by my biological father. Finding out he'd cared all along changed something fundamental in me. 6 weeks ago, Valentina sent me another message, longer this time. She'd been in therapy, she said, learning about her behavior, about why she'd treated me the way she did. She didn't expect forgiveness, didn't ask for money, just wanted me to know she was working on herself. I didn't respond immediately. I sat with it for days, trying to figure out how I felt. Finally, I wrote back, I'm glad you're getting help, genuinely, but I don't think we should be in contact. Not because I hate you, but because we're not good for each other. You need to build a life that isn't connected to me or my inheritance. And I need space from people who hurt me, even if they're sorry now. I hope you find peace, but find it somewhere else. She didn't argue, just sent back a simple, okay, I understand. That was it. The end of the Valentina chapter of my life. No dramatic confrontation, no tearful reconciliation. Just 2 people who'd once lived in the same house deciding they were better off apart. Roger never contacted me again after that day in the hallway. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd remarried, a woman his own age who worked as a school teacher. They lived modestly. He'd apparently learned something from losing everything, though whether he'd learned enough was questionable. My life now is nothing like I imagined when I was 18 and taking out student loans. But it's also nothing like Valentina's life was when I met her at 13. I'm not rich in the way she was rich, flaunting wealth like a weapon. I'm rich in the quiet way my father must have been, using resources to solve problems and create opportunities. The foundation has helped over 200 women now. Each one has a story like mine, family who hurt them, systems that failed them, escape that required courage I can barely comprehend. And each one found their way to us, got the help they needed, and built something new. Last month, one of our first recipients came back. She'd graduated college, gotten a job as a social worker. She wanted to volunteer with the foundation. "You gave me a chance," she said. "Now I want to give others the same." That's when I knew we'd built something real. Something that would outlast me. A ripple effect of women helping women, of survival turning into support. I still have the fake document Valentina left at my apartment. Patricia gave it back after the legal threats evaporated. I keep it in a frame on my wall, a reminder of how far some people will go when they're desperate. A reminder that cruelty often comes from pain, even if that doesn't excuse it. Sometimes late at night I think about alternate timelines. What if my mother had never married Roger? What if Richard had insisted on being part of my life? What if I'd given Valentina the money? So many possibilities, so many different outcomes. But this is the timeline I'm in, the one where I learned to fight, where I inherited enough to change my life, where I turned pain into purpose. My therapist says I'm still processing everything. That sudden wealth is trauma in its own way, even when it's positive. She's probably right. I still feel guilty sometimes when I buy things, still hear Roger's voice telling me I'm entitled, still remember Valentina's sneer when she'd throw my belongings away. But I'm learning that having money doesn't make me greedy, that keeping boundaries doesn't make me selfish, that I don't owe anyone access to my resources just because they helped raise me or shared a house with me. Those are hard lessons. The world teaches women, especially poor women, that we should be grateful for scraps, that we should accept less than we deserve and smile while doing it. My mother learned that lesson too well. She stayed small, stayed grateful, stayed quiet, and it killed her. Not directly, but indirectly. The stress, the exhaustion, the aneurysm that came from years of pushing herself too hard. She never let herself want more because wanting more felt dangerous. I want more. Not more money or more things, but more peace, more impact, more life. I want to wake up without that familiar knot of anxiety in my stomach. I want to help people without depleting myself. I want to exist in the world as someone who matters, not because of what I have, but because of what I do. The foundation is my legacy, not Richard's money, which will eventually run out, but the work itself, the structure we've built, the women we've helped will go on to help others. That's what matters. That's what lasts. I still work, not because I need to, but because having purpose matters. I'm a grant writer for nonprofits now, helping other organizations secure funding. It's satisfying work, using my skills to make sure good programs get resources. I'm good at it too, better than I expected. My apartment is nicer now, but not extravagant. 2 bedrooms, updated kitchen, building with security. Comfortable, not opulent. I could afford much more, but I remember what it felt like to choose between groceries and electricity. That memory keeps me grounded. Last week, a woman contacted the foundation. Her story was different than most. She had money, came from wealth, but her family was controlling in ways that made Roger look mild. They monitored her bank accounts, her phone, her friends. They'd arranged a marriage she didn't want. At 27, she'd never made a decision without their approval. "I know this isn't your usual situation," she said, "but I need help. I have access to my trust fund, but if I use it to leave, they'll freeze it. I need time, a safe place to land." We helped her, connected her with lawyers who specialized in financial abuse, found her temporary housing. Within a month, she'd legally separated her finances from her family and moved across the country. She called me, crying with relief. "I thought having money meant I couldn't be trapped," she said. "But I was, just in a different way. Trapped is trapped," I told her. "Doesn't matter if your cage is gilded. That's the thing I've learned. Wealth doesn't automatically equal freedom. Roger had money, but he was trapped by his need to maintain appearances. Valentina had everything, but she was trapped by her own entitlement and insecurity. My mother had security, but she was trapped by gratitude and fear. Real freedom comes from knowing you can survive, even if everything falls apart. It comes from skills and resilience, and people who genuinely care about you. Money helps, but it's not sufficient on its own. I'm 28 now. 6 years since my mother died. 5 since I inherited the money. 4 since Valentina showed up at my door. The timeline of my life splits into before and after those events. Before, I was surviving. After, I'm living. The foundation board meeting is next week. We're discussing expansion plans, new programs. One board member suggested we start a scholarship program too, not just emergency housing and legal funds. Full college scholarships for women escaping difficult situations. We could call it the Richard Chen Educational Fund, someone suggested. I froze, then nodded. He'd like that. Because he would. A man who built things, who made money but understood its real purpose wasn't accumulation. It was creation. Building better lives, better opportunities. He'd built a company. I was building something else. But the impulse was the same. After the meeting, I drove to his grave again, told him about the scholarship program, about how his money was still changing lives, would keep changing lives long after both of us were gone. The sun was setting, casting everything in gold light. I felt peaceful, content, like pieces of a puzzle finally fitting together. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Valentina. I heard about the foundation, about the scholarships. I'm proud of you. You did something good with what you were given. Don't reply to this. I just wanted you to know." I stared at the message for a long time, then I deleted it. Not out of anger, but because some chapters are meant to stay closed. Valentina was trying to make peace with her past. Good for her, but I didn't need to be part of that process. Driving home, I thought about the girl I was at 13, moving into Roger's mansion with my thrift store clothes and secondhand backpack. How small I'd felt. How certain I was that I'd never belong in that world of wealth and privilege. I'd been right. I didn't belong there. Because that world was built on hollow things. Status, appearances, money as a measure of worth. But I'd built my own world. One where money was a tool, not a trophy. Where helping others wasn't about feeling superior, but about remembering what it was like to need help. Where success meant impact, not accumulation. The girl I was at 13 wouldn't recognize me now, but she'd be proud. And my mother, wherever she was, would be proud too. Not because I'd gotten rich, but because I'd stayed kind. Because I'd learned to fight without becoming cruel. Because I'd taken the resources I'd been given and used them to build something lasting. That's the real inheritance. Not the money itself, but what you choose to do with it. Valentina wanted it to maintain a lifestyle. Roger wanted it to save his failing business. But I wanted it to create change. To be the person I'd needed when I was young and scared and alone. The foundation continues to grow. Every month, new women reach out. Every month, we help them escape, rebuild, restart. It's not perfect. We can't save everyone. Some situations are too dangerous, too complicated, but we do what we can, and that's enough. I'm learning to be enough too. Not perfect, not a hero. Just someone who survived and decided to help others do the same. Someone who inherited money and chose to honor it by using it well. Someone who faced cruelty and refused to become cruel in return. My father's grave is peaceful in the fading light. We're doing good things, I tell him. Your money matters, not because of how much there is, but because of what it's become. The wind picks up again. Maybe it's him, maybe it's just wind. Either way, I feel understood, connected to something larger than my own life, part of a story that started before I was born and will continue after I'm gone. I drive home slowly, thinking about everything, about Valentina and Roger and my mother and Richard, about all the women the foundation has helped, about the ones we'll help tomorrow and next year and 10 years from now, about how one man's success became dozens of women's fresh starts. This is what inheritance means. Not just what you receive, but what you do with it. Not just wealth passing down, but transformation moving forward. Not just surviving, but creating space for others to survive too. I pull into my apartment building. Normal night, normal life. But underneath, everything has changed. I'm not the scared girl who lived in Roger's house anymore. I'm not even the angry young woman who watched Valentina lose everything and felt nothing. I'm someone new. Someone who learned that having money means having responsibility. That privilege isn't about designer bags or mansions. It's about using what you have to make the world slightly better than you found it. Tomorrow, 3 more women will contact the foundation. We'll assess their situations, determine how we can help. Some will need legal assistance. Others will need emergency housing. All of them will need hope, and we'll provide it, because that's what we do. That's what my father's money does now. As I unlock my door, I think about that fake document one last time, the forgery that started everything. Valentina had tried to steal my inheritance through lies, but in doing so, she'd given me clarity, reminded me why the money mattered, not as wealth to hoard or flaunt, but as power to change things. I'd told her she was greedy and selfish, but really she'd just been scared of losing status, losing comfort, facing the world without her father's money protecting her. I understood that fear now, but I'd learned to move through it instead of being controlled by it. My apartment is quiet, safe, mine. I make tea and sit by the window, watching the city lights. Somewhere out there, a woman is planning her escape, gathering courage, counting money, wondering if she can really do it. Tomorrow she might call the foundation, and if she does, we'll be there, ready to help. Ready to be what I needed 6 years ago and didn't have. That's the real ending to this story. Not revenge or reconciliation, but transformation. Taking pain and turning it into purpose. Taking inheritance and turning it into opportunity. Not just for me, but for everyone who comes after. The money my father left me changed my life. But what I'm doing with it, that's changing lives plural. And that difference between singular and plural, between me and we, that's everything. That's the point. That's what makes this all worthwhile. I finish my tea and get ready for bed. Tomorrow the work continues. More women to help, more lives to change. It's not glamorous. It's not what Valentina imagined wealth would be, but it's real. It matters. It's enough. And so am I.